Welcome back to another episode of NFL News on the Boomer Bust channel. I'm your host Terry, and today we got some quarterback shuffling going on. Some interesting news. Actually, it happened yesterday. I was indisposed. I should have recorded it last night, but I was not able to. But it's okay. Here I am. Okay, so first off, we're going to start with Tua. Tua is ruled out with a concussion. He entered the concussion protocol, I believe, Monday after he reported symptoms, and they said that they did an investigation. At this point, that the investigation team might as well just stay in Miami. I wouldn't be mad at that if it was me, but they might as well just be ready because they did the investigation. They said once again they didn't see any rules being broken or whatever, and so I don't really care about that part. Like I trust them to do their thing. I don't believe in this whole conspiracy that they're like forcing players to go out there with concussions and stuff like that. So anyway, but eventually he was concussed. And so people are talking about and speculating about him playing a certain level the second half, potentially because he was concussed and all that. I'm not sure. But either way, the important point at this juncture is that what is this, his third confirmed concussion this year, something like that. And so some people are calling for Tua to retire. And so this obviously is not a toxic thing for the most part. This is not, the typical ridiculous reaction. This is fans, media, retired players, other players, all these people like saying that he needs to either retire or take some time off to work with a specialist to make sure that everything's okay for him to continue his career. And so what you got to understand is obviously everybody's body is different. The severity of a concussion is going to be different from person to person. Also, the frequency. Some people are just more susceptible to concussions. And so, not to say that that's okay. I tend to agree with the idea that he needs to see a specialist. I think retirement and taking a year off is too soon. Now, I would say that for this year, he probably should stop playing. And I know that's going to be hard for anybody to swallow as a Dolphins fan when it's not a lot that they make the playoffs, especially without Tua playing, but it's still a good chance that they get in. They control their destiny right now. And so it's hard to say, well, we need to go continue into the playoffs without our starting quarterback. But I think that's the right move. Again, this isn't, vitriol from anybody. I think this is just people worried about another human, which is good to see. But I do obviously think that none of us that don't practice in that field and haven't met with Tua should really be saying like what the results should be right now. I think that's up to the professionals and the specialists, which he needs to go probably work with during this off season. And then from there, they can determine the best course of action. But I do think retirement is in the cards. And, it would be, we've seen a lot of unprecedented stuff before. There's a lot of change in this country. We still got a lot of ways to go, but there's a lot of change in this country in the last, I would say, the last 5 to 8 years. There's been a lot of change, and we see the culture is very different, especially in the NFL. So yes, it would be something that we really never heard of, but I think it would be the right move if they tell you that's what it is, because clearly he's susceptible. Now, I've seen some players who just have a bad season or a bad stretch. And that's not to say that their brain is rattled and they always are going to continue to get concussed. But some studies will say that the more you get concussed, the more easy it is to continue to get concussed. But I've seen some people, obviously, if nothing happens to your head in the game, you're not just going to randomly be concussed. So it can work out where you continue to play, especially as a quarterback, and not get in those situations. But like I said, I've seen some players go on to have college careers, short pro careers, and they weren't, susceptible to concussions, even though they might have been through a stretch in high school. So it can happen, but again, that's up to a specialist. So it would be sad, man. Like, especially because I think if this was Mahomes, this is a totally different feeling conversation. Not to say that the result would be different, but the feel would be different because Mahomes, for the most part, by everybody, are like, yeah, Mahomes is that dude. Tua has been divisive. I mean, because obviously a lot of people threw him out last year, and I've never been like a big fan of Tua. And I'm not, but you know me, I don't do the whole bust thing. But people called him a bust last year. Then this year, obviously, you can't deny what that passing offense was doing. And as soon as he played bad, then people were ready again. Told you I never believed in Tua. Told you you're gonna turn back to a pumpkin. And so now that this is happening, obviously some people are going to feel like some of this is wrapped up in people's hate, or if you criticize him before, talking about his health, people aren't going to necessarily take that, sincerely from you. So there's a lot of emotions wrapped up in this situation, but I think at the end of the day, if they say that he has to stop or take a break or whatever, it's just going to be sad, man. Not many people make to the NFL. Not many people last long. Obviously, playing quarterback is a dream, and so I feel bad for him at the end of the day. But if that's what your body is, then that's what your body is, and you want to preserve that. But to be honest with you, as adults, as grown men, if somebody, and I have seen people like this that said, you know what, I don't care, I'm not gonna live a life without football, I'll die on that field. If he said that, hey, what you can't tell him. Obviously, they don't have to, play him, but if that's how he wants to live his life, that's how he wants to live his life. So we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, to have somebody, especially on a rise in their career, but to be this young, and we're talking about his career probably being over, that's scary stuff, man. All right, so next we have some real scary stuff with these two situations. First, we have the Commanders, and Carson Wentz is back to starting. I'm really confused by this. I'm just confused because, and I know that Heineke has not been, balling out per se, but at the end of the day, the team has been doing this thing. Now, here's where it's funny to me because fans and media line up to be like a win is a win, and coaches and them, they say that stuff, but obviously, again, like I said, that's not true. That's only true when it comes to getting into the playoffs. But for the most part, how you win is more important. So, and it's not like the Commanders have been on a tear and won like 10 games or nothing, but obviously they've done enough to get in the playoff positioning. And so now they have to fight these last two games to hold on to that position. And so you're in the playoff hunt. You're in the middle of it. You got a guy that we all know, again, not balling out, but we know has given the team a different energy, a different amount of life than Carson Wentz did. And so while he might not be excellent, I don't think he necessarily kills you as a quarterback, but we do know that he brings the energy to the team. The team really likes him. And so how much is that valuable to you? It might be different for you, but for me, I think it's pretty clear cut because Wentz isn't balling out either. And, it'd be different like the Dak Cooper Rush thing. That's different. And not to say that the players didn't like Dak or anything, but Cooper Rush obviously doing his thing, definitely balling out more than Heineke, but still doing his thing. And, the team rallied around him. Dak's healthy. You bring Dak back. Of course, that's fine. I don't think that this is that situation. Carson Wentz is not on that level of Dak. And so, and he hasn't been hurt. Clearly, they just let Heineke continue to play. And so now they're saying they're doing this to, make the run, which to me feels like the opposite. Like, to me, it feels like, and not to say that they're going to tank this, but I just don't think this gives you the best position to run for the playoffs with Carson Wentz coming back after not playing for a while and the team really getting used to and getting in the groove with Heineke. Because at the end of the day, this defense is going to carry them to the playoffs. If they're going to win the last two games, if they have any shot in the playoffs, it's because of this defense. And I'm sure they are praying and praying that Chase Young can get right so he could come back and add to that already dominant D line. And so when you're talking about one of the best run defending teams, um, and a team that is pretty good as far as giving up first downs as well, or defense, I should say. Adding Chase Young would be big, and that's really what's going to keep them in games. And so whether it's Wentz or Heineke, yes, you might feel one of them can give you one more play than the other, but that's really, I think, the difference that we're talking about. It's probably one big play and one turnover. And so which one do you lean towards? That's up to you. But I just think the chemistry and the camaraderie that's been built on this run, it doesn't make sense for me right now to go back to Wentz, who probably is not that much of an upgrade, if an upgrade at all. And then we got Derek Carr. Yeah, yikes. And this is one of the things that I'm glad that I was able to wait to talk about it, because when it first came out, the Raiders was doing one of the favorite pastime of NFL teams, completely lying to the media. And but there was a way in which I could believe it. So when they said Derek Carr's benched, I'm like, wow, scapegoat, this bogus. And then I heard Josh McDaniels talk, and I saw some of the reports from Ian Rappaport, and it basically said that it's not just Derek Carr, it's other players too. They're benching these vets to see these young guys because they know their season over and they want to see it. So I'm like, okay, weird, because you're still in the playoff hunt. No, even though it might be improbable, you're still in the playoff hunt. Usually teams don't lay down. And then also, I don't think I've ever heard of that. Like, because they said he'll be inactive. But again, they said other players. Now, will that happen? I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait and see. But clearly, the whole Derek Carr thing was not about seeing Stidham, because very quickly after, it wasn't, oh, he's going to be inactive. They said, no, he's taking a break away from the team. So he's not even going to be in the building. I'm literally thinking it was like Derek Carr's good with it. I was like, okay, this is weird. This is different. But Derek Carr going to be on the sideline. They're just going to, like I said, pack it in for the season and see what they got going forward. But now the truth comes out. Derek Carr is not even going to be with the team. So very clearly the writing on the wall, Derek Carr is gone. And again, the contract comes into play. People start pointing that out, that he's got an injury clause. If he gets injured, he's or can't pass a physical at the end of the year, he's going to kick in another 30 to 40 million. And so they say, the reports is Josh McDaniel didn't make this choice. It came from the owners, and it seems to be a money move. Also, they're blaming him. They're like, and this is the thing. So Bill Belichick's a good example. When people talk about like the way you handle things and the optics being bad, sometimes I'm like, yeah, whatever. But I know for the most part it's true. Bill Belichick's a good example. There's like, for what Belichick did, no matter how bad it is, unless he was, being like Urban Meyer or something. But no matter how bad the team plays football, you couldn't fire Belichick because of what he did for that organization. It just wouldn't look right. And so that's a good example of stuff like this. Like, if Derek Carr is bad, And even if he might have a money trigger or whatever, you can't you can't do this. Like, it looks like you're throwing him under the bus. I don't know what other way you can take it. Because if you said, all right, you're going to be inactive, okay, because we don't want you to get hurt, we're not going nowhere, and we ain't trying to pay you this money. All right, cool. If they said that, okay, cool. But him not being at the in the building with the team for the rest of the year, bro, what does that look like? That looks like y'all are like throwing him under the bus and y'all got real beef with him. And the problem that a lot of people have, myself included, is not all Derek Carr's fault. The fact of the matter is Derek Carr's never got the respect for what he has done on the field. Um, or I should say for the positive stuff he's done on the field. As you know, every year I do my real quarterback rankings. Nobody watches, but anyway, I do that and I look at the numbers against playoff teams. Now I'm probably gonna switch that this year, but consistently Derek Carr is in that group. Consistently. And he has good games against competition. And so people don't see that. They don't think about that. And then we just, again, overall, Derek Carr has never been looked at as that type of quarterback. And to be honest, he's not an elite quarterback. I'm not saying that, but he is a lot better than people give him credit for. And it might just be that 0 to 100 thing. Either you're a bust or you're an elite quarterback. Because I would say Kirk Cousins is in that camp too. Um, Probably some other quarterbacks, can't think off the top of my head. But Derek Carr is definitely in that camp where he just does not get that respect. Jared Goff this year, definitely in that camp. And so Derek Carr has not been elite. And they brought in Devontae Adams. They brought in these new weapons, yes. But they also brought in Josh McDaniels in the new system. It hasn't worked. It didn't work from the beginning. You had Waller and Wentz just lost in the sauce at the beginning of the year until they got hurt. And it didn't make sense. The offense was not clicking. And so that's just this year with Josh McDaniels and all that. But you look at all the stuff that they've had going on with the Raiders. You look at Derek Carr and his perseverance. You look at, and I think him being a great person outside of football helps his case a lot. He's just been a real big pillar in the community and all of that, and really an ambassador for the organization. And for them to do this to him, it's just it really shows the integrity of the organization. And this is why you have to weigh these optics when you want to make these type of gestures. Some things you have to do out of respect, and this is one where they disrespected Derek Carr because they basically threw him out to the world and said it's his fault when that's clearly not the case. There has been so much wrong with the team, more than just Derek Carr. And they still made it to the playoffs last. First of all, once they didn't even give the interim guy a shot last year after what he did, you already knew what type of people, what type of time they was on. And so, but still, for them to pull through and do all that and him to be part of that, and then to upgrade the roster on the offensive side and then go backwards, it's just it's a tough deal that clearly doesn't fall on just the quarterback. So I'm gonna say this: at this point, I think there's a lot of options, but the only one that is really sitting in the front of my mind, he should go to 49ers. I'm telling you, this is what you do. If you're listening, Derek Carr, Devontae Adams, here's what you do. Um, they can trade Jimmy G for Carr. Jimmy G, they want to get out of here anyway. You might as well get some for him. Derek Carr, if Lance isn't fully back or if he is still as raw as they say, Derek Carr can step in and start. And he can help mentor, bring Trey Lance along. But not only that, as soon as they trade Derek Carr, then Devontae Adams puts out a public statement like Kevin Durant and says, I'm not playing for anyone but Derek Carr. Just like LeBron more. So LeBron said, I'm playing wherever Bronny at. Do that. And then now the 49ers got all the leverage and the Raiders have no leverage. And not saying you're going to get an easy trade, but it's going to be a lot easier than before. So you call up 49ers, call up the Raiders, say, he said he ain't playing for y'all. Y'all know he ain't staying. So let's put something together. Maybe give Ayuk up, a couple picks, or whatever you got to do, and then get Devontae Adams. Boom! Devontae Adams, Christian McCaffrey, Debo Samuel, Derek Carr, Trey Lance. I always forget the running backs. There's so many of them. Jeff Wilson and Mostert are the ones that are now in the Dolphins. Who is that other running back that's not McCaffrey on the 49ers? Is it Jeff Wilson? I don't know. Anyway, you got him too. And so that team would go absolutely crazy. I would love to watch that. Not a high chance that happens, but if it does, you heard it here first. So anyway, that's what I think about all this. Go down in the comment section. Let me know what you think. Share it around, get the conversation started. Thumbs up, subscribe, and thank you for listening.